Well, welcome to our Sun River Chambers Zoom and Learn Tuesdays live at noon. I'm really glad you're here. I wanted to say that Kent suggested I make a video of the ways we can have stress relief around the overwhelm that's going on with the fires here and the virus and everything. And I made that yesterday and put it up on the Chamber Facebook page. So I hope that that will be of use to you. And today I wanted to share with you this rather amazing gentleman who was a trauma surgeon. And he just got tired of doing surgery on people's backs. And I thought you'd enjoy this TED Talk. So let me get it rolling for you here.
The human spine, your spine, is evolution's masterpiece. Perfected over 4 billion years if you count all the prototypes, and in daily use for 3 million years. It's a marvel of design. 24 vertebrae, precisely stacked, each just hefty enough to bear the brunt of all those above it, and each connected to its neighboring vertebra by 6 joints, joints that in combination allow the spine to flex and extend, to bend side to side, and to rotate on its axis. Movements that in combination allowed us to successfully run down rabbits and run from jackals, the whole while balancing an 11-pound head on top of the 7 cervical vertebrae. The spine allowed us to stand, to walk, and to run. It freed our hands to use tools, to hunt, and to create culture. Our spines made us human. I've had extra innings with the spine because as a medical student, I took it apart in the anatomy lab, and as a surgeon, I put it back together in the OR for a long career. And the more time I've spent with the spine, the more amazing it seems. It's just perfect. So it comes as an immense shock to learn that our spine fails most of us, and it fails starkly. 80% of Americans develop back pain that makes them seek medical care at some point in their lives. Often it becomes a chronic problem, sometimes treated with opioids, opening the door to the catastrophe of human drug addiction. Additionally, back pain costs America over $100 billion a year. That's right up there with cancer and heart disease. And here's the thing. Not only does the spine fail most of us, but it fails mysteriously. Almost always, x-rays, CT scans, all that stuff is normal. Heck, we don't even know what's hurting. Is it the discs, the facet joints, the fascia, the muscle? We don't know. It's pretty clearly not tissue damage or inflammation, but what then? We don't know. But here's a clue. Back pain is virtually unknown in cultures that still sit in traditional ways. Japan has a back pain rate of about 3%. Contrast that with the United States, 80%. Our spines are identical. So what's going on? Well, our office chairs are predicated on the idea that we require support in order to sit. So we get the headrest and the backrest and the armrest and the footrest. And then, in order to restore something that looks more like normal posture, we get the coup de grace, lumbar support. But we aren't being supported. We're being confined and restrained. Winston Churchill once observed that we shape our environment once, and then it shapes us forever. We spend on average 11 hours a day in intimate contact with chairs, and they are reshaping us for the worse. Much worse. But what if we started over with a clean sheet of paper, got rid of the headrest, all that stuff? What if we got rid of the fixed seat? What would that look like? Is that even possible? Well, after a year of failed prototypes, I discovered this geometric solid. It's the volume of intersection of 2 cylinders at right angles. Placed on top of a surface with another surface placed on top of it, it can rock on the surface it sits on, and the surface on top of it can also rock, allowing rocking in every direction. If we take that shape and put it under the seat pan of a chair, we get a chair that moves in all directions. If you sit on it, it allows, actually it requires, moment-to-moment adjustment of your posture. But it all happens at the spinal reflex level. Your conscious brain is free to listen in to the conversation that your spine is having with gravity. But it all happens without any user input. It just kind of feels like floating. So it feels interesting, but is it accomplishing anything? Well, we don't yet have any double-blind crossover study kind of data, but here's a story. We sometimes go down to Church Street, the walking street in Burlington, and just put out a few chairs just to see. And these things attract people like flypaper, and it usually goes like this. You know, people are a little hesitant, and then they give it a little wiggle, and then they sit down on it, and they immediately lose their balance, and then they very quickly find their center. And over the next 90 to 120 seconds, their sternum comes up and their head comes back. The skull balances on C1 and C2, the atlas and axis, the first two cervical vertebrae. Their lumbar lordosis, the low back curve, reasserts itself. Their shoulders relax. And pretty quickly, they're sitting with the casual posture of a baby sitting on the beach. So anyway, we're sitting on Church Street, and a young woman, maybe 13 or 14 years old, comes and sits down on one of our chairs, and she's just sitting there kind of blissing out in the sun. No phone, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then she gets up and walks away. But before she gets 10 paces, she says, "You know, I think it makes me walk better," as though some postural reset button had been pushed. Well, encouraged by this, I took a couple of chairs to a big academic ergonomic conference where researchers from all over the world were presenting their work. And there I met a guy who's very big in the world of office chair design. And we had a spirited conversation in which he talked about chair design, and I talked about anatomy and physiology and anthropology and epidemiology and a bunch of other ologies. And you know, we swapped email addresses, and I didn't think much more about it until I got home and I found a heartfelt email from this guy in my inbox in which he said, "I feel terrible. I've spent my life trying to make chairs so comfortable that no one would ever want to get up. And now I find that sitting slumped in front of a computer all day is catastrophic for people's posture and for their overall health. But what am I supposed to do? We've convinced people that they can't sit without lumbar support, and now we can't sell a chair unless it has lumbar support." The poor guy, and really his whole industry, is trapped by their legacy. So our little startup is not trying to make a better chair. We're trying to upend the idea of what a chair is. This won't be an easy lift because everybody already knows what a chair is. They're wrong. But this won't be an easy argument to win. So what to do? Well, maybe we just need a different audience, an audience that comes with no preconceptions about what chairs are, what sitting is, like say, kids. So we took some of our chairs to schools in Burlington, Vermont, and the kids really got into it. Kids love to move, and they instinctively know that sitting still all day is a terrible idea. And our chairs gave them sanctioned privilege to squirm, you know, without being criticized by anybody in the room. It was sort of sanctioned squirming, and they really got into it. I thought this was an original idea, but it turns out that another researcher, a friend of mine, Skrute Fudling in Norway, had already had the idea of active sitting as a sort of postural prophylaxis for kids in school. And he'd come up with what he calls the rodeo chair, which is really very Scandinavian and beautiful to look at. And I have to say, it's very amusing to sit on, or you might almost say ride on. It's just very interesting. But when I asked Frode how much he charged for these things, he said $800. And I said, whew, and schools will pay that? And Frode said, sure, Norway. Well, in the United States, of course, we can't afford glitter for preschoolers' art projects, so $800 chairs are pretty much off the table, at least for most schools. So, what to do? Well, how about this? Let's make chairs that are free. No, really. We've designed a chair that's made out of plywood. The pieces just snap together using a self-locking joint that we invented. No screws, no glues. The rocking mechanism is an old tennis ball. These things are cheaper than free because people will pay you to take them away. The height's adjustable because it's plywood, for crying out loud. If you have a shorter kid, saw off some of the legs and you have a shorter chair. And then we stitch the top on with a piece of bungee cord, like you'd sew on a button. In fact, it kind of looks like a button. So we call it a button chair. So an active chair for $5 worth of plywood. Finally, high school shop projects can produce something useful. And here's the really cool part. These chair parts are cut by a CNC router. It's a sort of a robotic, demonic chisel on speed. Here it is cutting seat tops, and then it cuts the legs. There's hardly any waste, throw that away. Fit the pieces together, lock it together with a mallet, wham, wham, wham. Add a tennis ball and a seat top, there's your chair. So an active chair, pretty quickly made. And here's the really cool part. The CNC router is just following the instructions of a digital file. So we can email that file anywhere in the world. We can literally stuff these chairs through the internet, and if somebody on the other end has a CNC router, they can print as many chairs as they want. They can print a room full of chairs, for active chairs, for kids who want active chairs to sit on. So could we give our kids a future without back pain? I think we could. And here's the thing. If we could do that for our kids, and they did it for their kids, in 2 generations, no one would have back pain. And really, at $5 a kid, can we not do this? Thank you.
If you came to my posture and hiking class that I offered a couple of times in Sun River, what I love the most is the fact that this chair allows us to have our posture come back into our natural state and be more mobile and whatnot. And I guess the takeaway is to sit less and move more. This is the company that this gentleman developed, and you can find it on the internet at QOR360 or core360.com. Basically, what's really funny about that chair that he created for kids is that it's not only called a button chair, but when you look at his website here, and it's for sale, the template is for sale, it's actually called the butt-on chair, which I thought was pretty funny. Now, I understand from my husband, who's a techie guy, that this CNC robotic cutter thing is very expensive, so that's kind of the drawback there. But if you wanted to unmute yourself and you had any questions, feel free to do so. I wanted to share with you, until then, what I've used for a long time, and it's one of these big, this is a gymnic ball. I think it comes out of Germany. Where's the logo? Here. And it's, $25 or $30, but it still keeps your spine kind of active, and that's good. I have a friend actually who's a craniosacral therapist, and she just bought one of the chairs from Dr. Oslo, and they run about almost $400, so $350 to $400. I can't wait to try it, but she told me that she felt that her spine was sort of naturally starting to realign and uplift. And if you recall from my sports biomechanics information, it's so important to lift up through our spine because it brings back our natural state of freedom and often less back pain because we're not compressing our spine anymore. So that's our wonderful talk for the day. And anyone have anything they'd like to share? Just hi, Marty.
Hello. Actually, when I was doing jigsaw puzzles during the COVID stay-at-home thing, I would sit on a ball and do
Yeah,
it because it was more comfortable.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, did you find your spine? What did you think while you were sitting on the ball? Did you notice anything different?
I like the movement
Yeah.
constantly, but I was probably slumped over the table doing so I can't say my posture was really good.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I think maybe, I'm sitting quite a bit lower than I do in a chair normally, and my desk is, kind of when you're a kid and you're eating at your desk and you're up here. So different things have to adapt because of it, for sure. Helen, did you have any insight being a Pilates instructor?
Yeah, I think sitting on the ball is a good tip. At one point, I had a chair that was, it was on a round disc. How can I? It was okay. It was like a donut,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, so the donut kind of rocked on the floor a little bit, and then there was a post. I'm trying to remember how the stem attached to that, but the donut, and then you sat on it was a bit of like a saddle kind of
Yeah,
sat on.
that
You,
sounds intriguing.
yeah, so it was a very similar idea. One of the caveats of that was you kind of had to build up to sitting in it all day.
I've heard that.
Yeah, if you started just by, normally how you sat in a chair and then just swapped it out, you would actually like end up in some back pain because you weren't used to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of that. So yeah, I ended up not moving it with me to this house because I wouldn't have really had a place for it. But yeah, at the time it was good.
Uh-huh. I think that's sort of the message as we try different things is compassion. If we've been stuck in one posture for a while, it takes
Yeah.
some
And then
time.
I think also just not always relying on the chair. I know it's easy to forget because you've got your mind on other things, but when you catch yourself slumping, hunched over, just to remind yourself to, sit up tall again and
Yeah,
try to adjust your screens and stuff so that that's something that will naturally occur. Have your screen a little higher, your eye focus, your eye
right.
a little
Right.
higher.
Didn't we talk about, I know in one of those talks, I showed a couple of different posture braces that we can wear while we're adapting to more upright posture. And I don't think I have it handy, but it's just a strap around the shoulders and then one under your chest that kind of molds you in the opposite direction, as if you've got a string here and you're being lifted up into the sky. But there's a machine, a small thing, I don't know what it's called, upright, but if you look for posture corrector or something on Amazon, it's a little guy that sits on the back of your upper back and it kind of vibrates or beeps at you when you start to slump over for too long. And I have a couple of friends who use that and found it useful. I think it might be called Upright.
Did they eventually get to where they could do it without wearing it?
Yeah, it was a good intermediate.
Yeah, because I think the end goal is always to, train
Learn
yourself
to hold
beyond
ourselves
that.
up. Yep.
Mhm.
It takes
Yeah.
a lot, it takes a lot of practice, but we can remold for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs reminding, even those of us that think of it.
Right, right. Yep.